All right. Well, for decades, the U.S. government has warned that Iran is on the brink of reigniting its nuclear weapons and that they are a threat to America. We've heard this before in the early 2000s during the Obama years, under the first Trump administration, and again under President Biden. Now the language changes slightly. The urgency is always imminent, though. It's always right there, right? Like right around the corner. You're going to blink and it's going to be there. And there's always new proof. Here yesterday is Vice President J.D. Vance saying again he has fresh intelligence that Iran does have a renewed nuclear program. We blew it up 6 months ago, but I have new evidence that it's back. It's like herpes. Watch.
Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. If they try to rebuild a nuclear weapon, that causes problems for us. And in fact, we've seen evidence that they have tried to do exactly that. So the president sending those negotiators to try to address that problem, as the president has said repeatedly, he wants to address that problem diplomatically. But of course, the president has other options as well.
Okay. Now, fresh intel. This video is also going viral this week. This is a compilation of 2 decades of Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu saying that Iran has a nuclear program and it's weeks, if not months away. Watch.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly. If they wanted to.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb.
Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
Once Saddam has nuclear weapons, the terror network will have nuclear weapons. Next thing you'll see is a nuclear bomb in the World Trade Center. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region.
It's been so great.
It's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's been unbelievable how well it's gone.
Can we hold him to that promise? Is that possible?
No, you can't hold him to that promise. No. And when is a journalist can actually say?
This is his vision.
If I got to sit down with Netanyahu, that would literally be the first video I would show him. Of course, he would never do our show, but that would be the first video that I would show him. Like you've repeatedly said this, and you've led us down this trail repeatedly.
Right.
It hasn't come to fruition. When is that going to change?
Yeah. Is this your great vision of positive things in the Middle East? Is this it? We're here? Because I don't think this is so fun. It's not fun for me. Now, I want to remind you that during the Bush administration, George W. Bush, the U.S. launched the world's first cyber weapon, Stuxnet, on Iran's nuclear centrifuges, which were never proven to be for weapons, but they still did it. Bush left office and Obama said, I got it. He took the baton and kept this cyber weapon going. So this is bipartisan, the attack on Iran. And in fact, Obama's State Department then went on to sanction Iran into oblivion while all the while trying to prove that Iran had a nuclear bomb to justify it. One of his demonic officials bragged about it in this evil book. If you'd like to, get really mad, read this. In 8 years, they inflicted suffering on innocent civilians in Iran. They weren't able to get the same medicines as these demonic Washington livers who can order food and go to a CVS and get whatever they want, but they still were sanctioning Iran under the auspices that they may have a nuclear program. President Trump now seems to be sort of picking that up and saying, oh, yes, we know, nuclear program. It's like a weed. It's like a nuclear whack-a-mole, basically. Now, on Tucker Carlson's show this week, Clayton was his guest, and he said that the threat of this war alone is a psyop. So if you are feeling that, if you're like, oh my God, is it coming any minute now? Okay, never mind, it's not. Oh wait, yes, it is. Well, you're not alone, but this is the largest military buildup in the Gulf since the Gulf War. So joining us to break it down today are 2 men with very different but deeply informed perspectives. We have Colonel Douglas Macgregor and former CIA officer John Kiriakou. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Now, I want to ask you this question, and I think we'll start with Colonel Mac, if you don't mind. Given how unpopular this war is, how unwilling Americans are to go along with it, how much would it cost us in lives and money, given all of that? Politico is now reporting that the Pentagon wants Israel to strike first. in order, they can't, the U.S. can't be first blood because it's so unpopular. Now, this seems to me an admission that they know that Iran will not strike first. So why are we so trigger happy, Colonel? What is the reality of how the U.S. military would fare in an actual war against Iran?
Well, obviously, this is more evidence that the people in Washington think Americans are incredibly stupid because they think that somehow or another, by encouraging the Israelis to fire the first shot, that we'll understand or believe instantly that, oh, we didn't do a thing, and now we have to because Israel's in the fight.
Right.
Americans aren't that dumb. And I think Americans actually know this is all about Israel. So we can sit around and debate the pros and cons of the whole thing, but this is all about Israel, and it's about Israel's agents in the United States, the collection of billionaire Zionists who essentially are dictating policy to our government. And I hope you remember that the only time the Democrats and Republicans all stood and cheered wildly was when Mr. Trump talked about attacking Iran. That seems to have been the unifying force, because that's where the money is. Who's paying these people? Where's it coming from? Well, those billionaires are pouring money into these people, and they all know that if you go along with it, you're going to get more money, and if you don't, they're going to give it to your opponent. So now, militarily, how will this goes? That's a real tough call. I've been looking at Larry Johnson's work today. Larry put together a great story involving all the various types of aircraft on both sides and the types of missiles and so forth and so on. The truth is this. This is a big country, very large. They have a lot of very bright, capable people. This is not a backward desert waste disposal plant. This is a serious country with a long and distinguished history. These people are not going to surrender. They're not going to submit to Israeli hegemony on the basis of our threats. So they're going to fight. What have they got? They have an almost inexhaustible arsenal of missiles, and at least 2,000 of them fall into the theater ballistic missile category, maybe a few less, but it's close to 2,000. Then they have a lot of other medium-range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles. Some of these are of a relatively new variety from China, including missiles designed to attack and demolish or even sink ships. The range, though, of course, is an issue, and the radars are an issue. We know that the Chinese have provided some very new state-of-the-art radars that theoretically can look out to 420, 430 miles and even identify stealth aircraft at that range. On the other hand, we have extraordinary aircraft. There's no question about it. This is the largest, I think, collection of modern aircraft, fifth generation and fourth generation, that the world has ever seen. And these aircraft can reach out far beyond the normal range thanks to the weapon systems they carry. We don't need to go through all of them, but they have the capacity to destroy a number of these radars at a distance, at a standoff distance. But we don't know the range of the missiles that will be fired at them in some cases. Some of these are Russian in origin, but a lot of them are also Chinese. So to answer your question, worst case, we could have our bases utterly destroyed in the region. They may actually be able to go all the way out to nearly the Red Sea and beyond Israel. We don't know. We know that they see everything. They have satellite-based intelligence from China and Russia. We also know that they have agents on the ground who can pick up the proverbial cell phone and call. So there are a lot of people out there that are going to help them, and they've got lots of information. The real question is, how tightly integrated are these air defenses? How much experience is on the ground? I'm told there are hundreds, maybe as many as 2,000 Chinese on the ground in Iran helping the Iranians.
Wow.
I would think that that's necessary, because you can't deliver some of the technology that's come in within the last few weeks and expect these people to be able to do it. Now, we have Americans in F-16s flying for the Ukrainians, not in U.S. uniform, but they have gotten permission from the National Command authorities to go over there and fly these aircraft on the west side of the Dnieper. I would not be surprised if there are not some Chinese pilots on the ground ready to climb into the cockpit and fly some of the new aircraft that are being delivered to Iran. Then, of course, you have the Russians, and the Russians have excellent intelligence. They've got lots of ships. They've got lots of submarines. I think the Chinese have submarines and ships out in the area. I don't know how many are currently stationed outside the Strait of Hormuz, but there are several. All of this suggests that we could take losses. Could we have 500 casualties? Sure. Could we have only 300 or 400? Potentially. Can we kill thousands of Iranians? Yes, there's no question about it. So the losses the Iranians will take will be disproportionate, because this bombing campaign, air and missile campaign, is not designed to induce compliance with Mr. Netanyahu's demands. It's designed to disintegrate the state, to fragment the society, to induce chaos in the hopes that all of this will collapse like a house of cards. Now, I don't think it'll work, but I think that's the real purpose behind it all. And the question is, how long can we keep it up? 10 days, 2 weeks, not too much longer. So Iran's principal mission is to survive. If they survive, they win. If they collapse like a house of cards, they lose. And we look great if they disintegrate and collapse, but if they survive, we look stupid, because we've thrown everything in the world at them and it hasn't worked.
John, I want to get to you in a second. I have a nuclear question for you here in the intelligence piece, but just, Colonel, on that last part here, I mean, what is the end game plan? This is something that Tucker and I talked about yesterday. Like, what actually is the long-term goal and plan? I haven't heard, I think you've said this before, but I haven't heard anyone in Washington say what the long-term plan is, other than, Lindsey Graham saying, kill Khomeini and regime change. Well, that's not a plan.
The long-term strategic goal is the same as it's been, I think, for almost 30 years, and that is to make the region safe for Israel. That means to establish Israeli hegemony over the region. Again, I think it's going to be extremely difficult to do that, because just within the last few days, you've had the former Prime Minister Natali announce on Israeli television and to the whole world that if you think Iran is a tough problem, we think that Turkey, or Turkey, is now the greatest potential threat to Israel, maybe greater than Iran. So I think the whole thing is about, we've got to beat everybody into submission and submit to Israel. That's it. That's the goal. I don't think it's attainable, but I think that's the goal.
John, I want to ask him about this. So on the intelligence gathering piece of this, right, you heard J.D. Vance saying, we've seen evidence of this, and this is happening now. Their nuclear program is back. Of course, you'll recall, that the White House issued a press release on June 25th. I'm reading it right now. Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated, and suggestions otherwise are fake news. That was the headline from the White House. You can read it right now on the White House's own website. So in 8 months, John, they've completely reconstituted. It's back. How would we know? Someone in the chat room said, how would they know unless they're there and they're boots on the ground? From an intelligence gathering perspective, how would we know?
Because this is what the Israelis are telling us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've been traditionally weak in terms of boots on the ground in Iran, and we've long relied on the Israelis passing intelligence to us and then just treating it as gold straight from the mouth of God. But the Israelis tell us what they want us to believe, and we just run with it. I think that, look, starting at the beginning, Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader, issued a fatwa decades ago saying that Iran would not build a nuclear bomb. The CIA has published two, not one, but two national intelligence estimates saying that the Iranians do not have a nuclear weapons program. The Israelis and the United States together released the Stuxnet virus, which destroyed Iran's centrifuges, even if they were spinning to to enrich uranium. The bottom line is there really is no Iranian nuclear weapons program. There never has been. They have a nuclear program, but I haven't seen any evidence, even when I was still inside the CIA, to indicate that they were trying to build a nuclear bomb. And even if they had one, they don't have a delivery system for it anyway. So Iran is no threat to the United States. I don't believe Benjamin Netanyahu when he says that it's an existential threat to Israel. It's Israel that's the existential threat to Iran. Iran's not the country that has had a history of attacking all of its neighbors. It hasn't attacked its neighbors. Israel certainly has attacked its neighbors. And so this is just one of those, another in a long line of made up crises where the Israelis try to either talk us into or trick us into doing their dirty work for them.
I don't know if you know, number of conservative commentators and influencers and otherwise have had their bank accounts shut down. They've been debanked. Friend of the show, Scott Ritter, Wyatt Reed, in fact, from the Gray Zone, had his bank account, or his, I think his PayPal, was just like shut down. And the Gray Zone itself also just debanked, shut down, inability to access their PayPal accounts. That's unbelievable. Well, Rumble is the only company that has stood the test of time and deserves our support. They have rolled out Rumble Wallet, and they're challenging big tech censorship right now. They have introduced something that will give us protection from the big banks shutting us off. Banks can cancel our accounts and freeze our cards. With Rumble Wallet, you control your money, not a bank, not a government, not a tech company, not even Rumble can touch it. It's yours, only yours to protect your future, your family. So support our show today and other creators by clicking the tip button on your Rumble channel, and you can use your Rumble wallet. Go to wallet.rumble.com, download the Rumble wallet today, open an account, and step away from the big banks. Wallet.rumble.com. Well, the big medical hack of 2025 was several peer-reviewed studies identifying the direct connections between anti-parasitic medications having off-label benefits fighting a wide variety of cancers. And this makes sense. The connection between tumor growth and parasites has been known for years. While the CDC remains silent about it, of course, they have finally admitted that millions of Americans suffer from parasitic infections that often go undetected or undiagnosed. That's why Dr. Peter McCullough, Chief Scientific Officer at the Wellness Company and the world's most published cardiologist, says these studies make clear that you should do at least one medical-grade parasite cleanse annually. The Wellness Company's proprietary USA compound, which is ivermectin and menbenzidol, is a doctor-prescribed gold standard combination dose designed to help the body eliminate parasites and other incredible benefits. Each bottle contains 90 capsules, enough for a complete 21-day cleanse. So this high-strength formula can be found at your local pharmacy, but the Wellness Company removes the red tape, making the process fully digital. All you do is you fill out a quick intake form, a doctor reviews it, and your medical-grade parasite cleanse arrives in a week. It's time for a new year and a new you. So head over to twc.health/redacted and use the code redacted to save $60 off plus free shipping. Again, that is twc.health/redacted to save $60 off plus free shipping.
I've been thinking about the sale of this war, and I'm old enough to remember the Yellow Ribbon campaign during the Iraq War. And that was brilliant, and it was funded by the Pentagon. So we thought that it was an organic way to support the troops, and people did. They had it on their cars. They had it on their clothing. They had it on T-shirts. And at the height of that war, over 70% of Americans supported that. And if you didn't, you were called unpatriotic. And it was brilliant propaganda. Now we have the opposite. At least 70 or more % of Americans do not support this war. We are not going to wear any effing yellow ribbons. We're not falling for that again. How are they going to do this? And keeping in mind that the sale of that, the propaganda of that came from the Pentagon. That's why I'd like to ask you, Colonel, how can they possibly do this now that we just see bullshit coming out of their mouth?
Well, two things. First of all, Natalie, I'm shocked. I thought you were in kindergarten in the mid-90s.
I was in middle school but I remember it. We wore it on
The
backpacks.
way I heard it from Morris and how you met, it's kind of scary.
She's pushing 50. I'm telling you, man. She might look like...
that's
I'm 47 and a half, actually.
She's got a cherubic face, Colonel.
On Saturday, I'll be 47 and a half. It's my half birthday.
And another quick point, and John knows this from his experience, I'm sure. Presidents get the generals they want, and presidents get the intelligence they want. We need to keep that in mind. If you don't like the intelligent assessment that was just delivered, you tell them to go back and do it again and bring it back when it says what I want it to say. So that's a permanent problem. Look, this whole thing is a catastrophe, and I think President Trump is running an enormous risk. This is not something the American people want and are prepared to support. This country today is radically different from what it was in 1990. I remember when, we deployed to the desert in 1990. We came back in 1991. There was this sort of outpouring of pride, satisfaction, and happiness that we had erased, frankly, the stain of dishonor from Vietnam. Not because of the things that we did there, we did a lot of things wrong, but because people were disappointed that we lost. Natali, I don't see that here at all right now. People are saying, wait a minute, what happened in Minnesota? You went there, you were challenged by the governor, you packed it in, you surrendered, you left. You can't do that. This is a war we have to win inside the United States. We must enforce federal law. You've done a good job thus far on the border, but you haven't stopped all the human trafficking and the drugs. Look at Mexico. It's a catastrophe. We have to protect ourselves from that. What are we doing? These are the things Americans voted for President Trump to do, and they haven't done it. So I agree with you. I don't think this is marketable at all. And if we were to take sudden losses, substantial losses, I think the pressure would be to cut bait and get out. People are saying, what are we doing this for anyway? The danger is that we suffer terrible reputational damage around the world, all in the belief that not only are we making the region safe for the Israelis, we're also attacking China by attacking Iran. After all, Iran supplies all this oil. And if the Straits of Hormuz close, we're going to destroy the global financial system. I don't see an upside to this at all. But it's very clear. I just got this recent bulletin in. These talks are over. There can be no compromise. Well, gee, I'm so shocked that Witkoff and Kushner could not bring the Iranians to their knees. This is absurd.
Well, that's a bit of breaking news. So the talks are off now?
Well, the Wall Street Journal is reporting that most of the conditions were rejected. But then we saw this from the Crown Prince of Oman, who mitigated some of the talks, saying that there will be technical discussions next week. Do we have that tweet? Yeah, can we put that up? They called it progress. The United States says they are disappointed. That's sort of what they're supposed to do. They're saying next week we'll have more technical discussions in Vienna. So, I mean, this is tedious.
May I add something to that?
Please, John.
Yeah.
I just got off of an interview with Al Mayadeen, the Lebanese network, and the person that was the other guest was the head of the Iranian nuclear negotiating team. And he said the same thing. He said that they are going to have to go to technical talks because the U.S. just won't budge on what really is the Israeli position, that Iran not be permitted to have any ballistic missiles at all, and that they have to cut off all ties to the Houthis in Yemen, Hamas in Gaza, and Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Those are non-starters for the Iranians. So what these technical talks are going to be are about how to what extent the Iranians can enrich uranium. Will it be as low as 2.6% or as high as 35% or something in the middle? The Israeli position is no enrichment whatsoever. And the Iranian position is we're going to enrich to something below weapons grade, for use in medical research, for example, but that the enriched uranium will remain in Iran. it will not be sent to Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, or Turkey, all of which have been proposed. You know, I'm usually an overly optimistic guy. I'm not optimistic about this.
So I want to follow up then, John, with what Natali mentioned about the sale of this war, because to the Colonel's point, we're not buying it. You know, on the military side, and the American people aren't buying it. Oh, but close to 80% of Americans don't want to have anything to do with a war in Iran. And so that's where your old group, the CIA, comes into play. And false flags work enormously well. The propaganda, it's an existential threat now to the United States that we're going to be attacked. I just want to play an example of how the media and the CIA and the intelligence state works in tandem to kind of push this fake news on people. Here is Mark Levin on television, and here is what he had to say about the nuclear threat to the United States.
That they must destroy civilization. They believe today that they must destroy the West. Most prominently, the United States of America. Those nuclear ICBMs aren't aimed for Tel Aviv or Jerusalem. They're aimed for New York and Los Angeles and Chicago and everywhere in between and around the United States of America. They're working closely with the Communist Chinese, Putin, and North Korea. And we are on the precipice, I believe, of finally addressing this so that we can have peace and security and prosperity. We haven't bothered that regime. That regime has been kidnapping, slaughtering, maiming Americans since day one. It seeks a nuclear weapon to destroy us. And any terrorist group that runs a country that murders 50,000 of its own people and would murder 1 million of its own people will have no hesitation about firing nuclear warheads against us.
So, of course, John, none of that's true, but that
literally none of it is true.
Like,
literally not a word of it was true.
Why is that guy still on Fox News? Like, they didn't fire him because he's carrying the water and the narrative for the propaganda campaign. I mean, nukes are about to hit us in Chicago. They don't even have a delivery mechanism that can go beyond 3,000 miles. We're 7,000. Anyway, go ahead, John.
His intelligence must be so incredible. He should be the director of the CIA because the CIA didn't know any of that stuff. No, in all seriousness, Mark Levin is unhinged. He is an Israeli mouthpiece for all intents and purposes. And nobody should believe a single word that he says. Again, the Iranians have never attacked one of their neighbors. The Israelis have repeatedly attacked all of their neighbors. The Iranians did not initiate hostilities with the Israelis. The Israelis initiated the hostilities with the Iranians. And so, no, there are no nuclear weapons in Iran. There are no delivery systems in Iran. It's the Israelis that have nuclear weapons and won't allow the international community to inspect them.
Well, how would the CIA propaganda machine then sell this, to Natali's point? Like, how is this going to work? We're not buying it. So do we need some sort of a false flag attack where we find this existential threat?
If the CIA were tasked with doing that, yeah, it would have to be a false flag operation. It couldn't be something soft, like just recruiting journalists to plant stories, you know, like they did in Italy in 48 or 49 and Guatemala in 54. But I keep coming back to the idea that President Trump hasn't gone across the country to try to win public opinion over. He hasn't done anything to try to sell this to the American people. And the fact that none of our European allies support this, none of them, tells me either that the CIA has failed in its efforts to sway public opinion abroad, or the CIA hasn't tried to swing public opinion abroad. I just can't understand the president's thought process here. If you're going to do it, do it. Don't fool around, just do it. But if you're not going to do it, then don't do it. If you want to win the Nobel Peace Prize, if you want to go down in history as being, you know, the Richard Nixon of this generation, then make peace with the Iranians and screw what Israeli national interests are. You know, I took this whole America First thing very seriously. We should be putting America first, not Israel first, or Canada, or any other country, just the United States first. So let's do it.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. I want to circle back to the Death Eaters that are selling this, even though the American people are not buying it. Number one is the ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Here's a clip of him earlier talking to a rabbi saying, you know what, even the Israelis are excited about this. They don't care if they have to go into their bomb shelters. Now, you know, public support for Israel is low, but we have to remember that these are families living there. It is scary for them to go into a bomb shelter. I don't think they are, in fact, raising their hand and saying, come at me, bro. It's their government that is. But watch this rabbi say exactly the opposite.
We spent 2 days here now, and almost everyone we've met with across the spectrum within the Jewish community, that's where we've been meeting, none of them have expressed any fear about going into bomb shelters or ballistic missiles from Iran. Every one of them universally has said to us, you must be excited to be here. You're going to have a front row seat to the miracles that are about to happen. Yeah. When you speak about the resilience of the Israeli people and what they've been through for 2 years, they're not in fear. At least those who we've met with across the spectrum have all expressed this faith and almost, I don't want to describe excitement, but they've had a front row seat to miracles for 2 years, and they feel like they're about to see the next chapter of it. And they ask you, aren't you excited to be here for it? You must feel so grateful.
This goes on for about 3 minutes.
They're like laughing.
They're laughing about, we absolutely could have a front row seat. A lot of our civilians could be killed, but that's funny to them. It's ha-ha joke. And that they all want it. Now, I know for a fact that they don't all want it, that this must be terrifying. It's terrifying for me in the middle of America. It must be really scary for parents, for real humans that do actually live in Israel. So, Colonel, can I ask you, what is the possibility of damage to Israel? We saw them get pummeled last summer when Iran did unleash limited strikes. What do you think? Can you give me worst case scenario for the civilians of Israel?
Sure. I just want to say one thing, just back to Morris, because you were talking about the media. And it strikes me that the Soviet Union really had one major outlet called Pravda. And that was the source of the information they wanted everybody at home and abroad to consume. I think we have 1,000 equivalents of Pravda in the United States.
Yes.
And they're all being fed the same nonsense, and they're passing the nonsense on to the rest of us. It's been enormously successful. And that's why, even though a lot of people are opposed to this, there's still a lot of conventional wisdom out there that's rooted in complete lies and fiction. You know, oh, they killed our soldiers, they did this, and so forth. It's tough dealing with that. It really is. And the fact that you exist and other outlets like you are preaching to the extent that you can the truth by going out and getting it from others is incredibly important. How is this going to turn out for Israel? I think that it doesn't matter what we do to Iran. After the initial strike, or in fact, even before the initial strike is over, the Iranians are going to fire volumes of missiles and rockets and unmanned systems on a scale that is hard for us to imagine. We're going to do everything we can with the fleet, the Aegis-class destroyers that are out there, as well as the aircraft ashore, the F-22s, F-35s, to stop it. But I think large numbers of these ballistic missiles in particular are going to get through, and they're going to do enormous damage. And if this continues for any length of time, beyond, say, 10 days, Israel could very well be completely destroyed.
Israel could be completely destroyed.
And they want it, according to Mike Huckabee. They're fine with it.
There's an important reason for that. I think, and this is one of the reasons that I think you're hearing Levin make the outrageous statements that he's making. These are statements of desperation. They'll say anything to get this war going because they regard it as their last best chance to drag us into the battle area and to destroy their enemies for them. If they can't get it this time, I think they probably believe it will never happen. And so they're going to pull out all the stops, anything they could possibly do to silence critics, to conceal the truth, and to hound everybody into this war. And I think they're going to get their wish. I just don't think it's going to work out very well for Israel.
John, your thoughts on that?
What Doug said. Yeah, I mean, that's it right there. These are people with a messianic view of the modern world. When the rabbi that was in that clip didn't use the word miracles by accident. He meant that they believe this will hasten the coming of the Messiah, that the end times are upon us, that nuclear war is good, and that finally, we all get to see the Savior and go to heaven.
He's volunteering people to die.
Yeah, they don't care. They don't care how ugly this gets. But Doug makes a very important point here. Doug, I wish I had thought of it, but I might steal it and claim it as my own. And that is
everybody else does.
We're sharing.
That is that they're desperate. I think they are desperate. And I think that's why they're all screaming so loudly about this. I think that's why Benjamin Netanyahu has made, 7 trips in the last 11 months to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's what we're seeing here. It's desperation. They're seeing public opinion in the United States slipping away from them. Where
there's another reason.
And the whole region, that's right. And in Western Europe as well, where so many of us were just knee-jerk pro-Israel or pro-Zionist, and now people are saying, wait a minute, this doesn't smell right to me.
Yeah.
And what does the United States get out of it?
Mm-hmm.
As Doug correctly said, we could lose hundreds of people. We could lose thousands of people in a protracted engagement with the Iranians. This is a giant country. It has 92 million people and a 5,000-year history. It's not going to go quietly.
There's another issue with this matter of desperation that we shouldn't ignore. People that desperate, if this goes badly, will seriously consider and maybe just use a nuclear weapon against Iran. And that's my major consideration. I do not think that anyone in the Trump White House would do it. I see no evidence that we have anybody that beyond reason in the Pentagon. But I think there's a real danger that if the Israelis are desperate and they don't think they've won and are not getting what they want, that they could turn to that. I hope President Trump is aware of it and has a way to stop it or neutralize it.
Well, that's what I want to talk about. We're going to take a quick break. I want to talk about President Trump and the reporting that's come out just over the past 24 hours about his thought process and decision-making here. And is the mainstream media trying to push him in a direction of war? I mean, you see that with what's going on with Fox News and otherwise. So I want to talk about the Trump piece of this and a talking point that's been going viral over the past 24 hours as well. So just give us 30 seconds, Colonel and John, and we'll be back here in just a few seconds. But first, I want to tell you about our friends at Lear Capital, because I don't know if you see what's happening right now with the collapse of the U.S. dollar. It's happening in real time, and by the way, it's intentional. We've been talking about it for years here on the show, and it's now here. The country is $39 trillion in debt, and your dollar is not going anywhere nearly as far as it once could. Are we talking like $30 Big Macs at some point? That's what Peter Schiff said on our show a few weeks ago, that's where we are heading in this deflationary period that we're in. So I don't know if you saw silver was up to $120 an ounce, dropped down to about 70, has bounced back. Gold now over $5,100 an ounce. So we are big advocates of owning real tangible things, real estate, gold, and silver, not fake US dollars, which are backed by nothing, really, air, debt, and the promise of war. That's really what the U.S. dollar is backed by. So our friends at Lear Capital can actually help you start investing today. Just give them a phone call. They're an American company. You're not going to be talking to some call center in India somewhere. You're going to talk to Americans, and they work with our viewers of our show every day to learn how to start investing in gold and silver. And just give them a free phone call, and then they'll send you a free gold kit so you can actually just sit down with your spouse and have a discussion about it. Just call them. 1-800-613-3557 is the place to go. Give them a call, or go to the website learredacted.com. That's the other place you can go. Again, have a phone call with them, and you could receive up to $20,000 in free bonus metals with a qualified purchase, depending on how much you buy. If you end up buying gold or silver and have it sent to your house, stored in your gun safe, or stored in a 24-hour guarded facility off-site, which is what we do in Delaware, you can do that as well. So it's totally up to you. 1-800-613-3557 for your free guide, or go to learredacted.com. All right, we are back with former CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou and Colonel Douglas Macgregor to discuss this impending war with Iran and how it comes together. What will its effects be on the United States? What will its effects be on Israel and Iran and the entire world economy? I wanted to play for you just a quick soundbite here. This is Jennifer Griffin from Fox News, gentlemen, where she was doing a report on all of the massive military buildup that's hit the region, all of the aircraft carriers and everything that has now arrived in the region. And as she was tossing it back to Bret Baier, this is what she said. It's just pay close attention. Watch.
It's hard to imagine the president backing down from the military option. The amount of military hardware the Pentagon is positioning in the region signals it is not a question of if, but when. Brett? Not
a question of if, but when. Last night I sat down with Tucker Carlson. We had a lively discussion about the impending Iran war. And Tucker just called it out and said, well, she's lying. I just spoke to the president. Like, what she's saying is factually incorrect. Watch.
That's not true, by the way. I mean, just in point of fact, that's not true. I do think we're likely to go to war with Iran. I grieve that. But in point of fact, Trump makes the decision, and he hasn't made it. So it's just a fact. So if you're reporting that we're going to war, you're lying. And it does feel like they're trying to create this sense of inevitability.
I think her point was the military buildup is like, you can't put that genie back in the bottle at this point. That there's so much of a military buildup. We've moved so many expensive pieces of equipment to this region, not unlike the Gulf War. In fact, I've talked to sources in Tel Aviv who told me they haven't seen this type of buildup since the Gulf War. So I think her point is, oh, well, you know what, Mr. President, maybe you just sort of sit back and let other people deal with this. We're going to build it up to such a degree where you just can't put this genie back in the bottle. And I wonder how much agency he has. We'll cut that guy off. But I guess
in favor of this guy.
In favor of this guy. In favor of Thursday, Clayton. So, Colonel, when you look at that, you see, Jennifer, I'm just so struck by this. You have a Pentagon reporter for Fox News basically saying,
it's a foregone conclusion.
It's a foregone conclusion. The military buildup is so large here that really Trump has no choice in the matter, and yet he hasn't even made a decision.
Well, there's precedent for that. And in August of 1914, when the Germans finally decided to mobilize, this is after it became clear that the Tsar had mobilized the Russian forces, the French were mobilizing, the Austrians had declared war. And the trains were running in Germany, and the soldiers were boarding them, headed to the western border. And the Kaiser was very upset because he didn't want a war. And he said to the chief of staff, who was with him at the time, he said, "Can I stop this?" And the chief of staff said, "Well, sire, I think it can't be stopped." Well, that was the wrong answer. The Kaiser was the commander-in-chief. If he had said, "I want this to stop," it would have stopped. If President Trump is listening, that's what I would tell him. Don't be misled. Nothing has to happen. You are the commander-in-chief. You can call a halt to this anytime you want. You can end it. You can also change the conditions for an agreement. You can alter it. And I agree with John. If he were to do that, that would be a strategic leap into rationality and future peace in the region. I don't expect it, but that's what I would tell him.
You know, this is a constant assault on my psyche because I'm constantly following it. So it's like, we're going to do it. No, we're not going to do it. Yeah, we're going to do it. Oh, these assholes, they have a lot of power. They're at the White House. Oh, no, Netanyahu's back. And what you had said earlier, John, is that this may be one of their last best hope to get the war that they finally want. But if they don't get it, then we have to keep living like this because they're going to keep screaming for it. And they will breed more people like the Ben Shapiros to keep screaming. What do we do? I mean, what I do is I marinate myself in this Monday through Thursday, and then I go to Costco on Friday and I pretend it's not real because otherwise I will crack.
Well, let me really ruin your day.
Okay.
Let me really ruin your day.
Yeah, go ahead.
what happens if the Iranians do fall apart? So the Israelis got the chaos they wanted in Iraq. They got the chaos that they wanted in Iran. Benjamin Netanyahu said this week that the real threat is Turkey, right? He said it this week, it's Turkey. What happens if there are hostilities between Turkey and Israel? Turkey is a NATO country. We are compelled by treaty to defend Turkey.
Right.
Would we? I doubt it. And that's going to be the end of NATO.
Well, I don't care about that. I'd be happy to see the end of NATO.
I'd be celebrating.
Wise woman, NATO's already dead man walking. So
right. I guess my point is, like, how do we whack-a-mole these war lovers so we don't have to hear it and we can go to Costco every day? I don't want to live this way. It's incredibly anxietizing, and they are not going to stop.
Well, maybe we'll expand on that. So the Jennifer Griffin clip that I played here, I mean, these are the forces at play. Right, the intelligence, Pentagon adjacent forces, John, that you know so well from having worked at the CIA. And so that's what, and the neocon forces and the Lindsey Graham forces, but the more nefarious behind closed door forces are the ones that I'm worried about, right? It's not the Lindsey Grahams, it's the people that are giving that bit of information to Jennifer Griffin. Then she goes on Fox News and pushes it. And then Sean Hannity goes on his show and wears a CIA lapel pin, which he wears on his show. Like, what forces are at play here really pushing us inside Washington right now for this war?
Yeah. Well, by all accounts, and I think Larry Johnson would say the same thing, there are factions at play right now. You've got the State Department / NSC all in, the DOD civilian leadership all in, and you have Tulsi Gabbard and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and apparently Vice President J.D. Vance saying, wait a minute, this is a mistake. We shouldn't be doing this. Now, couple that with the fact that Donald Trump really has done literally nothing to swing public opinion in support of an attack on Iran, and I just don't understand the policy. I don't understand why you would even have conversations where people could be quoted as having said, we've made a decision to attack Iran. How is that in the American national interest? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's not.
Yeah. I want to ask Colonel. Oh, go ahead, Colonel.
I was just going to say that don't overlook the people that elected Donald Trump to the White House. And when I say elect, I say it tongue in cheek. Who are the billionaires that spent the money? Right. And one of the things that's very striking to me in 2024 is that someone like Zuckerberg, who put a $250+ million into absentee ballots in major cities across the country and bringing in people to vote and register their votes. What did he do in 2024? That's what he did in 2020. In 2024, that didn't happen. It was called off. Now, why was it called off? Because I think the other billionaires that had historically opposed Trump had sat down with President Trump and made it clear, look, we'll make sure you get into the White House. We'll put you there. We'll support you. But you've got to do some things for us. This time around, you're going to have to deal with Iran. Remember back in June of 2019, we came very close to a war with Iran.
Right.
Trump ultimately walked away. They said, we're not going to allow that to happen again. Now, I don't know what these people may have from Mr. Epstein on anybody in Washington. I imagine there's a lot out there. And that may be part of this. I have no way of knowing. Anything is possible these days. But I'm afraid that's a very important decision factor for President Trump.
Yeah. I want to ask about these reports that are sort of viral right now about clogged toilets on the USS General Ford, that the soldiers are suffering. They're in long bathroom lines. It just smells horrific. That seems like a recipe for disease. But there were reports. So now some are surmising that the soldiers are sabotaging, or the sailors rather, are sabotaging the ship in order to be sent home. But there were reports of this ship having plumbing issues since as far back as 2022. So we can either chalk it up to low military morale or aging infrastructure. Now, Colonel, neither of those show confidence or readiness for a major global conflict. What do you know about that?
I know from my sources in the Navy that sailors actually took undershirts and stuffed them into the toilets to cause them to back up.
What?
I know that the
So that's
crew's
true.
very, very unhappy with being at sea now for 10 months? And before this is over, it will have been a year. They went to Suda Bay. I think they tried to address some of this. And now they've pulled out of Suda Bay after 48 hours or a little more than that to repair things. But you're talking about something else that's hugely important. I don't want to go into great detail, but logistics in the region is very problematic right now. Places we formerly were able to utilize, we can't because of the Huckabee interview, frankly. That particular revelation has turned almost everybody against us in the region. So the Navy is now looking as far away as India and ports there that they can go to as required. There are limited quantities of missiles and ammunition, and at some point you have to break away, you have to go reload everything. And then finally, a lot of these ships have been at sea for long periods of time and need a lot of retrofitting. Now, supposedly there are 3 carrier battle groups currently being prepared right now that could be surged out to the region. They wouldn't be ready for at least another 2 weeks. Some people say 3. But we may see them surge shortly in order to relieve these 2 carrier battle groups. This is tough. People think, well, these ships just go to sea, but they have to be replenished. The people have to eat. You have to have repair parts. You have to make things work that are no longer working after months of use. So there are a lot of problems with this. This is not an easy task. We all forget Iran is a continental power. We are not. We're a maritime aerospace power. We have to fly or sail everything in. Now, one quick correction. I do know that the RAF has sent their F-22s to the region to fly with us, along with their aerial refueling assets. But everybody else, as John says, has said no thanks.
Well, and I can just tell you from the military sources I've spoken to separately about the USS Abraham Lincoln that this is, I think, the 3rd now deployment. They were supposed to come home months ago. They just found out, I think about a week ago, that they were now extended again. So to your point, 10 months, and they're furious about it. 10 months. So John, this is troubling. But on the Colonel's point about Huckabee,
that's huge.
That's
but Clayton and I both looked at each other off camera like, what an amazing cell phone from that dickhead. So he has made it so that we cannot use those bases for a war we don't even want. We got to thank him for that.
He's such an unhinged clown. He should have been fired for allowing Jonathan Pollard, the traitor Jonathan Pollard, into the American embassy to be feted and for a formal meeting. He should have been fired just for that. Now he's essentially sabotaging our diplomatic relations with long-standing friends all around the region just because Jesus told him to. It's time for him to go. It's well beyond time for him to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still reeling though from the sabotage of these sailors who are saying, we're done here. What are we doing here? And that speaks to also, these other 50,000, or if it's now more than that, Colonel, forgive me on the numbers, that are sitting there as sitting ducks. And as President Biden said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when they will be hit and attacked. And these aren't fortresses in the region. These aren't like massive, fortresses. A lot of them are just outposts. So many Americans, rightly so, are probably furious about this, but many American soldiers could potentially be killed as a result of this.
Well, most of our troops have been evacuated from, as you say, these outposts and forward operating bases.
Oh, good.
We've tried to get them out of harm's way. There are not people in southern and eastern Syria anymore. They've all left. We do have the capacity for point defense in a number of different places, but we don't have air and missile defense coverage on a large area. I mean, one of the things that we don't really have is something that you hear referred to all the time, which is integrated air defense systems. We don't have it. That's another problem. We have limited air defense at sea and limited air defense at shore, and I think we'll concentrate where we're going to protect Israel. We'll protect some of the bases where we have a lot of aircraft, and the rest of it will be involve aircraft flying forward to destroy missiles before they reach Israel. That's the best we could do. And as far as the morale is concerned, we tend to forget people are human. I think the Navy has a big problem remembering that. And the admirals have been really pushing the fleet very, very hard for a very long time. And many of them are not nearly as well trained as they were 25 or 30 years ago, I can tell you that.
John, final thoughts.
You know, like I said a few minutes ago, I try hard to be an optimist all the time. But every time I see us take a step forward, it seems we take 2 steps back within 24 hours. And I'm just not optimistic about this. If we make the decision to attack Iran, no good will come of it for the United States. It will damage our international reputation more than it's already been damaged. People will die unnecessarily. We'll further strain relations, diplomatic relations with our partners across the Middle East, not just in the Persian Gulf, but across the region. There's no upside to doing this for the United States. If you're Israeli, sure thing. Let the Americans do your dirty work for you. But as an American, I think this is a grave mistake.
And Colonel, finally, do you think that we are going to attack Iran? And if so,
yes.
When do you think this timetable might happen?
Well, let's put it this way. 2 March is the full moon, and we have more than a few lunatics inside the Beltway, so I'm going to vote for sometime between now and 2 March.
Well, also,
that's supposed to be
the Jewish holiday of Purim, and according to my sources in Tel Aviv, that would be an ideal date for them to claim victory over the enemy during the Jewish holiday of Purim. So March 2nd, that's what I've been hearing. You've been hearing. There you go. John Kiriak.
No, I just know that it's a full moon. You know, I'm a Druid at heart. You know, given my background. What can I say?
He was out there at Stonehenge.
D-Day happened on the full moon.
A little further north.
Colonel McGregor, John Kiriakou, great to have both of you here to do a deep dive on this. You know, I don't think there's a more important story right now in the United States and what this could bring to the world. So thank you for your perspectives, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. God bless.
Bye-bye.